Hang on one second. All right. Welcome to our YouTube audience. We're glad to be here with you today. We're discussing the name of God. What is God's name and how that might be reflected in the text of the Bible? And not only that, is there, as I proposed, a seeming dilemma or discrepancy between what we find in early occurrences of the name in the book of Genesis, as early as Genesis 2:4, and what we see in Exodus 6:3. So what I was actually just going to wrap up this comment in that I believe that quite often and this, by the way, is what led these scholars who set out to understand why Genesis uses the name 199 times in 174 verses, and Exodus 6:3 says the name wasn't known. It was seeking an answer to that made them say, what's going on here? Because it wasn't that they set out to disprove the Bible. Most of these early investigators were ministers. You know, they were priests, they were teachers in academia, and they believed the Bible, but they began to find difficulties that they needed solutions for. And I think that whether a person accepts the documentary hypothesis or not, understanding that when this was first noticed and somebody said, well, wait, how could I read this? And they said, well, maybe this is a different source. I think that is a perfectly plausible understanding of the text. But just like they did, Damon, you also have other ideas, and many other people on this discussion have other ideas. So anyway,
let me do a quick recap.
Yep.
And then I had one more thing to add. Just for the YouTube audience, basically I was proposing that we can actually look at Genesis 1 through 3 astrologically, which is the way a lot of other ancient Near Eastern cultures viewed their creation stories. They had astrological elements. Look at the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example, and the Bull of Heaven. Okay. So there's a scholar by the name of John McHughes who did exactly that. He has an article up on ancientorigins.net, the Eden, according to the Howlett Heavenly writing. I don't remember the exact title, but anyway, what he proposes is that you have, for instance, the four rivers. Pisces represents the Tigris and Euphrates. The Pegasus square is Eden. There's wordplay on the Pegasus square, which represents the other two rivers, and the constellation of Aquarius, which represents God, Ea. The Sumerians viewed Aquarius as Ea, or Enki, and that was the water bearer. That was the source of the waters, as it were, the source of the four rivers. So I just wanted to add one more thing, and that is a quote from Job, verses 38, verses 31 through 33.
Wait, give me let me get the reference again. Job what?
38, verses 31 through 33.
All right, I'm ready.
He says, can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades? Can you loose the belt of Orion? Can you bring forth Mazzaroth, that's the constellations, in its season? Can you guide the great bear with its cubs? Do you know the ordinance of the heavens? Can you set their dominion over the earth? Meaning, you see what's reflected in the heavens? Can you establish it on the earth? Now, the dominion here, I think, is a direct reference back to Genesis 1, 26 and 28, where God's commanding Adam and Eve to take dominion over the earth. And obviously they didn't do that if Job's still talking about it. So I think what we have, you propose that man is looking up to the heavens and seeing what he wants to see. I'm saying I think Job here is giving evidence that it is actually a mirror of heaven down to earth, which is what I had proposed. The Lord's Prayer also, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it already is in heaven.
Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar with those. I'm also familiar with, there are quite a few pieces to bring into that scenario. If you look at Isaiah 51, in Isaiah 51. I think the translation is not so good, but let me go there. Isaiah 51, I think it's verse 16. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, it says, and I have put my words in your mouth and have covered thee in the shadow of my hand. This says, that I may plant the heavens and lay the foundation of the earth and say to Zion, you are my people. Now, I've even used this. The idea, the more general idea of what you're saying, I would agree with. I would say the idea, like Jesus prays in the Lord's Prayer, which I believe is really, he learned from John the Baptist, as it says in the text, or insinuates. But either way, he says, let your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. To understand that the goal is to plant the heavens. I could make a parable about this. And in other words, whatever you see in heaven, plant it on earth. Again, I would distinguish that between just because I don't know that it's strongly supported that the map of the stars is represented in, in the earth. But again, you've given a reference, you've given a book. It would be interesting for some people. They may want to read that. Make sure, by the way, that you post that, if you don't mind, on the Discord, because look, I mean, my view is just one view, and it's certainly not always the favored view. So, but in that
Yeah, I
section,
just wanted to
post
toss that
that.
out there. But
Yeah, no,
yeah, I
but
just wanted to
post the
talk.
book.
Mhm. Yep. So actually, one other thing that just came to mind, that's Deuteronomy 32,
Yeah.
verses 8 and 9, where El is giving land grants to the sons of God, as it were, including Yahweh. And we have in the Ugaritic pantheon, we have El and his 70 sons. Again, I think we have what looks like an astrological concept where you have God bringing these things down to earth, because he's not just doing things in heaven, he's also setting boundaries of the nations. So you have the sons of God, which apparently are divine beings, but they're ruling over nations on earth.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. What else you got there for us, Brother Damon?
That's pretty much it.
All right. All right. Well, if you can hang around, I know you said you might have to leave. If you can hang around, stick around in case something else pops in your head and you want to cover it with us.
Sure.
Otherwise, again, we are keeping you in our prayers as the
Thank you.
situation in California exists. And I pray that that is handled swiftly and completely. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, who else? We've got a lot of people in the room. Surely some of you have ideas. Otherwise, I'm going to start singing. Maybe that'll get you to raise your hand. No, I do think it's important, though, whenever we look at the name and the names, to identify, all the things that we covered, and maybe crack into this a little bit. There is Karen. Welcome back, Karen. We missed you. How are you?
Good.
All right. What all you got for us today?
Not much.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about the name, right? I
Yep.
think of the name as more for our benefit, not for God's benefit.
Okay.
Because humans, it's human nature to want to name something.
Right.
Something gives you legitimacy in your conversation. And I don't want to say power over the person you're talking to, but sometimes,
Yeah.
um, even if it's just perceived. So if I, quote some good fundamental fact, and the person I'm talking to says, "Oh, who said that?" And I say, "Oh, I don't know, some dude on the internet."
Yeah.
Doesn't give my conversation with them, that doesn't give my argument very much. It doesn't give it legitimacy.
Yeah.
I have really no power in my words. But if I say, "Oh, well, I read this in the Moses Scroll by the great Ross K. Nichols,"
All right, now be easy.
that's going to give my conversation a little more
Yeah, it's
legitimacy.
name dropping, right? Name
Right,
dropping. We
your
all do
name
it.
dropping.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to someone, I think it's just a human nature kind of thing. We want everything to have a name.
Yeah.
And in the word El Shaddai, I know Nehemiah, I put this in the chat, and Nehemiah did a study a long time ago where he uh, said it came from the word shade,
Yeah.
which means spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So he translated it as God the Great Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that more of a term, not necessarily a name.
Yeah.
In English, we'll say the source of all sources. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't call the term or the definition, the source of all sources, a name,
Yep.
personally. But if you heard it in another language, it might seem like a name to you. And maybe that's where what we're looking at with El Shaddai. It's more of a term, but because we're hearing it in Hebrew, it seems like a name.
Right. No, that's fair enough. And there is a lot of ongoing debate. I mean, that goes back thousands of years, where people are debating the subject of the names of God, the titles of God. I mean, all you have to do is throw it out there, and you're going to get all sorts of, well, actually, it's this, actually, it's that. And I think to your point, in the ancient world, it was similar. It's like use a modern example. You have kids. If one of your kids runs to you and says, "Mama, so and so did such and such," and you say, "Tell them to stop," they say,
Mhm.
"Well, I already did." You say, "Well, tell them I said." Well,
Right.
now you just up the game a little bit. Generally, okay. Well, Mama said don't do. I mean, we tend to do that, and it also is in our everyday walk. We want to attach a name. I noticed somebody put in the text or in the chat. I think on the YouTube video of the class, as I was about to get off and come to this place, and they said, "How do we call upon God if we don't know His name?" So there's that one element that a person says, "Well, how I've got all these texts that say I'm going to know his name, and so I have to be decided on that, or who am I talking to?" That's kind of the idea I think some people get.
Right. And, I think people innately, they know who they're talking to, whether it has a name or not.
Yeah,
So, sometimes using generic God is, I think, just fine.
yeah. And I know I haven't really got into this very much. I touch on it a little bit in various classes and discussions I've had with Jonah or whatever, but I grew up since I've been old enough to remember studying and about God in God's name in particular. And for the longest time, I've said Eloi, Elohim, all of those are titles. They're not a name. That was the way I viewed it. And I've seen the big argument, the debate between where like Arabs, Muslims refer to Allah, and somebody will inevitably say, "Well, that's a different God." Well, I've done a lot of study in the ancient world, and God, God, as we refer to the deity, has been referred to without a personal name in more context than not. And a lot of times it is based on the idea of Elah, Eloah, Elohim. And no one, if someone in the ancient world referred to El or to Elohim, no one in the ancient world said, "Yo, what's his name?" You mean, what's his name? I'm talking to Elohim.
Right.
And I think that's one of the keys that we have to understand is I want to try to break that mold. I mean, look, I know some of the great biblical scholars and what they've written on the name and some of the views that they hold, I held for a long time. But again, a lot of this is us projecting our ideas back on the ancient world.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you were saying about how we have to give it a name. I mean, what do you call this?
Mhm.
And I think that's reflected in the text too. I think we see it.
Yeah, definitely.
What else, Karen?
Um, I think that's it for now.
Well, hang around. I missed you. You've been gone for a little while, hadn't you?
Just 1 week.
Okay, well, see, it felt like forever. I'm glad you're back.
Thanks.
All right. Well, hang around. You'll probably come up with some other good insights for
Okay.
us. Hello, Sue. How are you, my friend? Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you. Wait.
All of you. Wonderful lesson today. I agree with Damon. I love the way you brought in all the different understandings and supported them. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm going to be going back over all of that and looking at it again. Just a note of interest, you were talking about Allah. And when we lived in Jordan, we were still Christians when we first got there. And we went up to Madaba to work with some refugees from Mosul.
Yeah.
And we went to a Christian church service while we were there. And of course, it was all in Arabic. And when they talked about God, they used the word Allah. We
Yeah.
sang songs to Allah, the whole thing. So people don't need to worry about using the word Allah.
Yeah. No, I know, and that's one of the things that I think is important for people to understand. It is very related, and as someone who's been exposed to Arabic like you, it is related to what we know in various forms of Allah particularly.
Exactly.
It is a very strong Semitic singular masculine name, and it is referred to as a name. You ask any person who understands both Quran, Arabic, and so the idea that people say, well, that's, you're a pagan, that's a pagan God's name or whatever. I think it is certainly a different term for the one God. In fact, we have evidence of that in Scripture.
Yeah.
Micah
Well,
4
I
and so
agree.
forth.
And I know my Orthodox Jewish friends tell me they're perfectly comfortable going into a Muslim mosque to pray. They
Yeah.
have no problem with that at all
Mm-hmm. I hear
because
you.
they know that the name represents the same God they worship.
Yeah.
For myself, I have no clue what is the correct understanding of the name. I tend to say Hashem or God.
Well, and that's I'm glad you brought that up because I really do like, and I know some people don't, but I really do like the Jewish, I guess, the practice of saying Hashem instead of a various, translation or a various proposal for the name, because it simply means, as most of our viewers know, it means the name.
Yep.
And it is a reference to the one God. And so I'm okay with that. Now, again, I know that some people say, well, you just need to make a decision and settle on it. And but I think I wanted to make it pretty clear, at least in my presentation, amidst all of those who claim to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we really don't know. We just don't know.
Good
And
guesses, but
that's right. That's right.
But
Good.
thank you again. It was a wonderful lesson, and I am going to be going back over it and reviewing it again. Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate you, Sue. Have a beautiful day. Shabbat Shalom.
You too, brother. Bye-bye.
Hello, Klojana. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Was that pretty good in pronouncing the name Klojana?
It's without no, it's yeah, like Yehovah.
Klojana.
Yodiana.
See there? Now look, you should have told. I've been saying this wrong all the time. And how would you even know I was talking to you?
I don't know.
See? You see what this whole point of this class is, to pronounce things properly, Klojana. Now, how
Yodiana.
are you today? Shabbat Shalom, my sister.
I'm good. Shabbat Shalom, my brother. I wanted I had a couple of clouds in my head.
All right.
Usually after your classes we have more questions than answers.
Okay.
So and it's a similar group. because I was looking at the comments, and Damon, brother Damon, tossed the question, and he said, "Why did people want? Why did Moses asked God for the name?"
Yeah.
And my quick answer was because they were in Egypt and they had many deities. So that's why they needed the name. But then again, Ron had a similar question after the class, now in the chat. And he asks, does God need a name or men want a name for God?
Yeah.
And that's a really wise question, I would say.
Right.
And I wondered, I had like, I think that people, human beings wanting a name for God is a process of anthropomorphing God.
Yeah.
I think that it's very difficult for people to understand God. So we try to do whatever is in our hand to make him approachable, understandable, and to bring him near to ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that Genesis, the verse where Genesis says that God made humans in his image, in his likeness, is one of the proofs that we really need to be near God, because I think that might be a redactor's note.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I had a question.
Okay.
So perhaps I didn't. Perhaps I lost it, and you said it in the class, and I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
I really want to know, how did we come from Ehia Asher Ehia to Hava Hove Yehie or Yehovah?
Right.
How did we come from the Genesis 3:14? Exodus 3:14 to Yehovah?
Yeah. Well, that is an excellent question. And for that, the answer is not so easy. And I don't know that we really have the answer. I'll compare it to what the text says about the name Moshe. In the name Moshe, and the reason I'm bringing this up, I think that it's the same kind of thing happened here. It's just my view. So understand that I speak as a man. This is what I've come to. I don't think that Moses was originally a Hebrew-derived name. I think it's more related to the Egyptian. We call this etiology, but how the source of a word. But here's the thing. I think it is remarkable that it sounds like Moshe sounds like the Hebrew Moshe. And so a person would hear that. This is just me imagining, I almost imagine that the daughter of Pharaoh knows Hebrew and Egyptian. And so she says, I got the perfect name, girls, listen up. I'm going to call him Moshe. And they go, oh, I get it. So it's Hebrew, it's Egyptian, it's like this. Well, but again, that makes it into the text, and it's a narrator telling us this, I think, at a later point. Now, if you look at the name, particularly in Exodus chapter 3, the first observation about Exodus 3 and Exodus 6, forget sources, forget all that academic stuff. If we understand that in Exodus 3, the God of the forefathers introduces himself to Moses, the first thing we have to identify and recognize is that this story tells us that Moses did not know that God. Moses didn't know the God. And Moses is, I presume, very much a part of the culture of his day, and that culture of its day, according to the biblical text, there are millions of Hebrews in and around him, and he's never heard, because he's like, if I go to if let's say you drop me well, here I am in the South, and God tells me to do something, and I'd say, okay, so is this, the God of these people is Jesus for the most part. So do I tell them Jesus sent me or what? I mean, that's almost the way I want to think about this. Now, I know some people their hair's on fire because I said that, but that's the idea that I get. So, but how do you go from Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh to Yod-Heh Vav-Heh? This is one of the crux, one of the arguments against Yahweh, meaning to be, because Ehyeh is clearly connected to the verb Hayah, right? It does have to do with existence or being. And some have proposed, and Patty, I don't know if Patty Tyler's on here now or not, but Patty just recently published a thought-provoking article, and she's posted it in various places, and it's in part based on this idea that the root of Yod-Heh Vav-Heh was not Hayah, but it had more to do with a verb that means to love.
Ahava.
Yeah. And that there is an argument for that. And so, but the later writer, by the time this is recorded, again, my view, this is recorded and the view was already that the name was based on Hayah, and therefore the story is later than the revelation is the way I would see it. I don't know if that answers it, but so what I'm saying is that sometimes these names and the revelation of various Hebrew parts of the story are written into the story to match what is for a later audience. Does that make sense? You don't have to agree with it, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but it didn't give me an answer.
All right. Well, keep prodding then. Think about what are your thoughts on it, because maybe that'll help. What are you thinking right now?
I really don't know. If God says to Moses, they didn't know my name.
Yeah.
They knew me as God the Almighty, but actually I am the one who causes the existence.
Yeah.
Or the one who is whatever he decides to be.
Right.
Then I don't know if there is any correlation with Yod-Heh Vav-Heh and Yehovah.
Yeah.
Because let's say that we know that it is Yehovah. How do we come to the one who was, is, and will be from Yehovah?
Right.
I know that Nehemiah has done some kind of, Nehemiah Gordon has done some studies on that. But to me, it looks like he's reading into the name. Because what we get from the Bible is Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. That's the only interpretation that we get from the text.
Yeah. And there's a big difference. There is a big difference in saying Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh and Anochi Yehovah. You know, you could, or Ani Yehovah, you could say, I am, I'll be whatever I'll be. And that means sort of what you said. Look, we would say it's none of your business. I'm going to be whatever I am. I'm just the ever existing one, no reason to explain it to you kind of thing. I'm not saying it's exactly what it means, but it's almost.
Tell you the,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Didn't want to interrupt, but to tell you the truth, it looks to me, and going with the wave that Dr. Tabor is going.
Yeah.
I think that it's a way for God to tell us, stop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop it. You cannot name me.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yep.
I am the one who will be whatever I decide to be. I am the one who is forever. I am the one who was, is, and will be. I am the one that is. So you cannot comprehend, you cannot understand God.
Yeah.
And that goes with the first word or the first commandment.
Yeah.
it's strictly, it's like he's trying to embed
Yeah.
to my head that, look, Claudia, you cannot figure me out.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. I had a very interesting discussion with a person about little idols and how people always want to give a human form to God.
Right.
That's Jesus. But then again, let's toss it. But the why we need to always make God approachable and humanize him. We
Yeah.
want to make him a human or a humanoid. So I was telling to him that perhaps the first commandment is saying us, stop doing that, because you are never going to figure out God. And he was like, then how are we supposed to adore, worship God?
Yeah.
And I was like, how are we supposed to approach the worshiping of God? And this person was a parent, and I was like, I asked him, I'm not a parent.
Yeah.
And I asked him, how did you learn to be a father?
Yeah.
Oh, he was really, he was frozen, and he was like, you know, you've got some kind of point there.
Yeah.
Because I think that the beauty of worshiping God is that this is personal.
Yeah.
We can, of course, share experiences so that we can try to verify if we're on the right path. But then again, we will never completely know because it's deeply personal.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, Clody, based on your current thinking, because I just saw Leslie Simler, a friend of mine, she's in the chat. She said, I'm paraphrasing because it's already scrolled by, but it was like, we've created God in our image. It's almost like we want to think of, we have a name. In fact, a lot of I pulled out my file on God's name, and a lot of those said, you have a name, your children have a name, we name things, and therefore, don't you think the Creator has a name? And then it gets into all these texts that we're currently working on. And so the thing that is interesting is that, again, I keep going back to this idea of how we're first introduced to the deity as Elohim. And obviously, when I came to study the Moses scroll, the Shapira manuscripts, and I recognized that it uses Elohim in the main body of the text and exclusively, even in the Shema and things like that. It made me consider again the way I understood the word Elohim. Is this just a term, a title, and not a name? And then I really started doing a study on this. And when you look at the biblical text, we have some stories, particularly in the life of David, between like in Samuel and the Psalms, where the same text is given. One time it uses Elohim, other time it uses the name. It reads perfectly fine. So the question is, which came first? And Don Dershowitz and I are now, we correspond regularly because we're working on the same difficulties, the same problems.
Sappirologist.
Yeah, and Shapirologist, and he is now convincing me, and from a study of the biblical text, that Elohim is the more ancient designation for this God. And we shouldn't dismiss it. Like when people go, oh, it's just a title and it could be used for judges or for what. Well, hold on just a second. I just want to say, whoa, it's almost like you said, Clody, stop, just stop. I think Ronnie has made several points like this. Um, who's really driving this? Is it that we feel that we have to assign a name and we have to get it right? I can't tell you how many times in my life I've worried, am I saying this right? You know, but I use the example of your name for a very specific reason. You knew that I've been talking to you, even if I've mispronounced your name. You might at some point say, listen, Ross, the J, stop saying the J, right? But you wouldn't like turn me, like if I called you, you wouldn't say, well, I can't have anything to do with you
You can
anymore.
call me Claudia,
Yeah,
Claudiana, Claudiana, whatever. I'm gonna know that you're referring to me.
that's right. And what if, and think about it, the Jewish people don't say the name at all. And, I've
They
been
say the name.
critical of that in the past, but now I'm not so much critical of that, because I was certain that the name was pronounced Yahweh. I'm telling you, you could not beat me into believing that I wasn't right. And I had all the proofs, and I put it together, and then I said, no, it's not. It's Yehovah, anyway. I am really convinced that this is a great mystery, and we don't know how to pronounce the name as it was pronounced in biblical times. And I would also say, I actually believe that the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh was introduced even later than the Bible says it was, and that it was later written into the story. It is remarkable to me that you can work through all of Genesis, which includes the patriarchal times and well beyond, because you're getting into the descendants of these people, and that name is never once represented. So I think it actually comes in later. And I'm not even sure that Yehoshua is a theophoric name as much as people believe. And there's evidence, one more thing and I'll shut up. There's evidence that the name Yod-Heh-Vav is more of a desert tribal name, that it comes from the desert tribes. So in other words, outside of Israel.
They found, I think that I read somewhere that in Har HaRhom, they had the tetragrammaton written all over.
I don't remember it at Karkum, but I do remember that there have been found on these desert petroglyphs and others this name in a very similar form. So very interesting.
I might be wrong.
Huh?
Okay. Yeah.
Good stuff. All
Thank
right.
you.
What else, Clody?
More answers, more questions than answers.
Hey, that's
Thank
good.
you.
That's right. That's good. That's a good thing. All right. Well, hang around. You probably have some more good insight for us.
Thank you.
Elisheva, Shabbat Shalom, sister.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This study is just so amazing to me. Amazing and awesome. It reminds me a little bit of the Proverbs reading that we read last night. Proverbs 9:10, which says the beginning of wisdom is the fear or the awe of whoever you want to call him.
Yeah.
El Elyon, Hashem, which is kind of what I call him, because I don't know what his name is. And it is the name above all names. He's the Most High. He's so awesome. We can't put our finger on him or his name like we do everything else. And I think, Clody, your thoughts were exactly mine. So many questions.
Yeah.
How did we get from Ehyeh to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh?
Mm-hmm.
So, is the root of, what is, Ehyeh, is that from Havayah?
I'll double check, but as I recall, it is generally assumed to be, Hayah is the root. Let me just look at
Hayah?
that.
Okay. because I had written, and I don't know really where I got this, Havaya with the Vav. Um,
Keep
so
keep going. I'm just pulling
no, no,
something
no.
up
I was
here.
just thinking. I know that some of my uh, quite orthodox rabbi friends refer to him as Haya.
Yeah, it is, by the way, it is ahia, because the aleph is, it really, the aleph, what it does is it puts it in the first common singular, I.
Mhm.
Haya means to be.
Right,
So, so it is ahia asher ahia, and then he says further, tell them that ahia sent you. And then he
right,
reveals the name. So,
right. That's where I had just turned to see if I read it one more time for the thousandth time that I might understand it better. But I still don't. And I've decided that I'm not going to stop looking, but it's okay.
yeah,
I have limited understanding. I mean, we know that his ways are higher than ours,
yeah,
and his thoughts higher than ours. And there are some secret things that belong only to him. But yet, why would he say, call upon my name?
yeah,
Or like in Psalm 91, you're going to have protection if you call on my name.
right.
If we don't know who he is.
Yeah,
And my answer to that, the only thing I've come up with is it not so much as his name, but his essence, his attributes, his awesomeness, his power, his magnificence. And I'm really beyond words here. I don't know what to call him.
yeah,
But yet, I think I looked earlier and someone in chat, I think it might have been Holly, um, who said something. Well, the question was asked, um, if we call him by a different name, and you use this with Clody Ross, I mean, is she going to know? Is she going to answer? And Clody
yeah,
said, yes, I will. Well, I'm thinking when many of us were in Christianity, we called on the name of Jesus. And yet, I believe we were answered because the Most High knows our thoughts, our innermost thoughts, and He knows that when we're calling out to Him, whether we have His name correct or not.
yeah,
So, to me, it's His essence, and I will keep calling Him by all the names that I've learned.
yeah,
But you know, in essence, I guess I like Hashem. That is the way that I first learned because He is the name above all names.
yeah.
And how do you put a name on an entity, on the force of all forces that created everything?
Mm-hmm.
The light, He created light, and that very light illuminates the pupils of our eyes. I mean, think about that. It's, to me, He's just so amazing. We cannot ever comprehend Him.
Yeah,
And I've just decided that's okay with me. I don't have to understand everything. And for someone who was asking questions in the beginning when she was born, that was kind of hard for me to to come to that conclusion. But I don't have to know everything.
yeah,
In fact, the more I think I know, the more I realize I don't know.
yeah. I'm in the
Um,
same boat, and I'm not, and I hope others are at least thinking of this as we're trying to think about. There's so much that we're learning, or we're studying. If we can just relax a little bit and understand that, some things we may never figure out. But
right.
and that kind of goes to that passage we all love in Deuteronomy. The secret things belong
Yes.
unto Yod He Vav He, but those things that are revealed belong unto us and to
Right.
our children. So whatever it is that we can know, fairly certain, then those are the things that we live our life by. I mean,
Right.
that's at least my view.
And I have to say with that, Ross, because you knew Roger and
Yep.
how much I loved him. I know you loved him
Yeah.
That was his most favorite, most often quoted verse.
Yeah, really.
The secret things.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And so I kind of coattailed on that because I just think it's very true, and that's really the answer to everything that we don't understand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
but it's fun though. I mean, this to me, there's nothing that I would rather be working on than I think the greatest mysteries of eternity. I mean, to me, this is the quest. There's nothing like it. And you know, a lot of people get a little bit nervous and they say, "Well, I want to know, where is this going? Where are you going, Ross?" And what I want to tell them is, "Hey, everyone, relax. Remember when Abraham is called by God and it says, Lech Lecha, he tells him, you're going to go to a place that I will show you. You know, and that would have been a perfect opportunity if Abram was like us to say, hey, look, I really want to go with you, God, but how about you I want to see pictures. I want to tell me where we're going. I want to know that before I leave, before I pack the kids up, you know. And I think that's the true faith is what we have engaged in. We're actually now moving forward in that ancient faith, I believe, in a way that none of us have before. I mean, all of us are in this quest. Anyway.
and to me, it is. I don't even have a word for it. It is just awesome that we as a group can all gather together. Nobody gets mad at anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody expresses their opinion, whether we agree or not. We continue to respect and love one another.
Right.
And to me, that's maybe a little microcosm of what it's going to be when Hashem comes back, you know, and establishes his kingdom.
Right.
You know, we will walk in the name of our God, and other people are going to walk in the name of their God. But in the end, He is going to show all of us who He is, and just reveal everything to us. And to me, that's just so beautiful.
Right.
So I don't think we need to worry. I'm a worrywart, and I just put that out of my mind. I don't worry. I just thank Him every morning for all the blessings and what He's done. And just for you and my friends and this group and my family, just everything. We've been richly blessed.
Well, it's all about digging deep, and I see there are quite a few comments in the chat on both here and in YouTube. I'm not even able to keep up with them. But here's the thing. Raise your hand, jump in, and share some of your insights like Betty's doing here. And there is quite a bit of debate on, you know, the origin of the name. So believe me, it is not as simple as some people want to think that it is. It's very clear that the root is Hayah, and here's how we know that, and, you know, and so forth. But that has been debated by some of the greatest biblical scholars of all time. So anyway, interesting stuff. What else, Elisheva?
I think that's it for today. Well, the one short thing is that earlier someone brought about, maybe Damon, not sure, that how there's with the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
You know, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And at the end of the Amidah in Judaism, which is the standing prayer, the Oseh Shalom pretty much is recited. And that is the same thing, you know, asking God that His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the thing that we're going to look forward to. Because that's real.
Good stuff.
That's really all.
All right, my friend.
So,
well, hang around. Let us know if you come up with other stuff. Throw that hand back up.
Okay,
all right.
Thank
Shabbat
you.
shalom.
Bye-bye. Shabbat.
And Charles Sutton.
Hey, brother, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm
Oh,
hearing
cool.
myself too, though. Maybe turn. It's like those
Okay.
old radio call-in shows. You might have to turn down your radio.
Okay. I'm on a cell phone.
Well,
Is
how
that
about
better?
I'll just be quiet.
Okay. Question concerning translation from Hebrew to English. Is there a way to tell from the Hebrew that a statement that is being translated to English is a statement, or is there some indication that a question mark at the end of that is appropriate?
Yes. And Exodus 6:2 does not have any indication that it is a question.
So when in the ISR 2009 scriptures, when I read 6:3, and I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, and by my name Yahweh, was I not known to them? With a question mark.
Can I give you my opinion as to what's going on there?
Yes, please.
The translator wants to solve the problem for us. So the translator knows that we've got Exodus 6:3 in the Hebrew that says, by my name, Yod-Heh Vav-Heh, I was not known to them. But they also know that the divine name, the Tetragrammaton, occurs 199 times in 174 verses between Genesis 2:4 and Exodus 6:3. So the only way to fix that is to take the problem and do this. Hang on, let me show you.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of what I suspected, Ross. I just wanted to know if there was any validity to the question mark in this translation.
Now, there could be other opinions on that. Obviously, the translator of this work might have a good reason for doing that. Let me just say, after I just made a show of that, I don't see a way to put a question mark. And I'm following in the footsteps of quite a few very big authoritative linguists, and they don't see a way to do it either. So if you find a way, because you're a person that digs deeply, let me know.
Really depend on others for translations. I appreciate you. Just as a side note, as quick as or skip it if it's not quick. How does one tell when translating Hebrew to English that a question mark is appropriate?
I can post that. There is the location of often a hey that is written into the text initially. How about I post an article on that and you can read that on your own time? Because without being able to show it and all that on the screen, I think it'd be easier just to post an article and you can read it.
You're going to do that in Yachad or on this platform?
Yep.
Okay.
I can sure do it.
Look, I'll look for it there. Thank you.
Michael Gibson may be able to post it here. He's got the questioning, hey, looks like this. He's got, so you can see that. But there is a way. And I have seen various people propose what those translators you're talking about, what they said. And I always look at that and say, well, that's one way to make a problem go away is just deny what it says in the open.
Yeah, I'm quick answers are not always the best. Thanks, Ross. I appreciate you.
Hey, brother, I appreciate you. Hang around. You'll probably have some more good insight. Eric, my brother. How are you?
Good morning, or no, good afternoon. I just a couple quick points. One was my choice of pronunciation is Yehovah, but mainly Well, from what I've learned, but it is the only word that is music to my ears in relation to the texts, at least in my limited Hebrew pronunciation, that matches and rhymes and just really makes the whole text more like poetry or song. Because any of the prayers that I've transliterated Yehovah and all the Baruch atah Yehovah, it just flows off the tongue.
Yeah.
So it's kind of my choice because of that.
Good.
The other part of the name and more technical stuff going toward the Jewish Kabbalistic and mysticism, Ein Sof
Yeah.
is the definition that I think Dave and you have used over the years, the force of all forces,
Mm-hmm.
kind of matches with. And if I understand, the rabbis are saying this is our closest guess to how we say the name or don't say the name, because they do know how they pronounce it, and there's history to that, but it's unpronounceable. It's too big. It's just like we can't see that kind of light. We'd burn our eyes out, and we wouldn't understand what he was saying if he actually spoke as the unlimited one or the force of all forces. So that kind of got me interested in all of this in a different sense, that it's unknown to us. So call him what you will, what you're comfortable with, but the bottom line is talk to him.
Yeah.
Acknowledge him. Call upon his name. Tell people about his name or what you think it is, and encourage people instead of beating them down and saying you're wrong and you got to go in the box in the back.
Yeah. I tell you, first of all, I can't take credit for the force of all forces. That between Dave Tyler gave a presentation, sort of a scientific view of the biblical text one time, and and he used that phrase, and I think then Tabor uses it. I mean, it's I don't know who came up with it, but I do know this: I am becoming more and more to think on and use Elohim. I mean, I know who I'm talking to, and Elohim is a name that appears to go. And by the way, I think now more than I used to. I used to go with what everybody said. The Elohim is just a title, and his name is Yod He Vav He. But I'm leaning a little bit differently now. But I also recognize the great work that plenty have done on the various forms of the name, like you said, Yehovah. And the other thing that I want to draw out, understand that when we find the pointing Yehovah in the Masoretic text, that's not the only pointing we find for those four consonants. If we treat them as consonants, we find different pointings, and I know you guys know this, but it's not the only one. And so what we're relying on, I can't remember, I have in my notes, I know Nehemiah has really looked through these medieval documents and discovered, numerous examples of that pointing, and then looked through a whole bunch of other documents. But what I want to know, like if I look at Elohim, I find that in ancient sources too, and it's less debated. I mean, most people would say, yeah, it's pronounced Elohim. So anyway, and Yah, we know Yah. There are things that we know beyond dispute. And then, look, I'm with you for a long time. I went with Yehovah because I felt like it was the one pronunciation that I was more convinced was closer to authentic than any other. So,
yeah, again, now I'm not so sure on the authentic, but it is what many has come to know. And as I said, the poetry, the songs, everything is in the cadence. It fits in, at least the way I say things. Most natural born Hebrews that speak the Hebrew to me are so fast. I can't catch up any more than I do when I hear my Cuban friends in the restaurant. I mean, my ears can't slow it down.
Right.
But it's a wonderful exercise in um, kind of drilling down and getting rid of the preconceived notions and what you've been taught, whether you realize it or not, maybe carrying it around as luggage, that you come up on your own with your own relationship with him. And how can you be wrong?
Yeah.
All right. That's me.
Hey, good
Thanks.
stuff, brother. Well, hang around. You may have more comments and questions and insights. We're here for you. Thank you, Eric.
Amen.
JJ, what's happening, brother?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Hey, Shabbat Shalom. All right. Hey, yeah, I got some music playing in the background here.
That's all right.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I was thinking about when we were going through this name and talking about it. So as far as the Tetragrammaton goes, I'm good with, I kind of agree with the pronunciation of Jehovah. I mean, it just seems natural to me.
Yep.
Is that the name of God though, right? Like what you were saying. So I a couple of years ago, before I really started studying this, I was just learning, trying to educate myself in the text of the Bible. It's like I saw the name Yah written like when I was looking at Alter's book. So early when I was started to do Bible study, one of the guys at the church I was going to recommended the Robert Alter books. And so I got that and started reading like the Psalms and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's like, I could see that. Maybe I can use Yah as the name of God, right? And then I was thinking more about it, which was this music I was just playing on the background. I learned the name of God before I even knew I learned the name of God because reggae is my music.
I like reggae,
man,
yeah.
How many times do you hear the word
Jah?
Yah.
Yeah, Jah, man. Jah, man.
Jah, Rastafari, So I was like, it just seems like, it's an easy word, and no matter which way you go about it, everyone knows what you're talking about if you say Yah, right? So I just thought that was I just wanted to make that little point. I didn't have a whole lot to say.
That's a good point, though. I mean, if people wanted to come together, if they said, like, I hear you, Ross, maybe Elohim this or that, but I want a name. Well, rather than say, well, I'm sorry, you can't have one, what we do know is that, now, again, it's primarily in the Psalms, but nonetheless, it is an ancient name, and we find that name deeply rooted in worship of the Creator. Boast and brag on Yah. And so I think it's, that's, hey, again, there's no debating. No one is out there going, no, it's actually Je or Joe or whatever. It's like it's clear.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I was trying to look back to my notes last year or from last week's discussion, but I can't read through too many things at once and find it. So I remember there was something and I was like, oh, maybe that's his name.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know. Maybe that was the Friday night thing.
Right.
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I'll go ahead and let Todd and Angel go in. I just wanted to kind of put my thing in there. Oh, the other thing with the reggae too, and the Jamaican, they always use that I, which is like God. Their version for God is I, and that just when I think of I think of it, Ehwe Asher Ehwe, Ehye Asher Ehye. It kind of sounds like a similar kind of thing to I.
Now, I'm
me,
not familiar with I. I don't know that, but it may be I'm not as big a fan as reggae as I thought I was.
Yeah.
But what is it? Is it just a certain thing that shows up?
Yeah. So I, that's as far as I know, I'm not totally immersed in the culture, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to try to take anything out of the context other than what I understand it. When I went to Jamaica a number of years ago, it was explained to me that when they use that word I, which if you listen to the reggae enough, you'll hear that song. It means God, the great I, the capital letter I, and little letter I.
Oh,
me.
I and I.
I
got
it.
I got it.
And I. So God is with a capital I, and me, I with a little I. So I and I. So
Gotcha.
then I just, the
Yep.
Asher Ehye, it just kind of reminds me of I, and I don't know.
Cool.
I just love it. I love studying. Thank you guys for letting me share.
Hey, brother, I
Todd and
appreciate you.
Angel probably has something more compelling than I
No,
do.
no, man. Good stuff. Hang around. You probably have some more insight for us. We're here.
All right.
All right. Todd and Angel, before I bring you up, we're going to say goodbye to our friends on YouTube. If you're part of the Yachad, you need to come over to the Zoom call. If you're not, hey, join up with us and help support everything we do. We'd love to have you be part of what we're doing here. So Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov to our YouTube audience. We'll see you next week. Until then, have a beautiful week.